My name is Ricky Lee, and I'm the author of the Food Lover's Guide to Orlando and the founder of TastyChomps.com, a local Orlando food blog. Like I said, this is Culture Through Food, kind of like a tour of Asia, of different countries and their cuisines, available here in Central Florida. So we're going to talk about flavors. In Asian cuisine, I think pretty much every culture in Asia, they emphasize using the entire palate, having something sweet, something salty, something bitter, something sour as part of the meal. And you'll see like lots of different colors, like reds and yellows and curries and all that stuff to, I guess, like have a balance almost like balance the yin and the yang kind of thing. And there's actually a fifth flavor that was kind of discovered in the 1900s called umami. And that flavor is kind of like thought of as the fifth flavor. And it was discovered in Japan by a scientist, and it literally means pleasant, savory taste. So it's kind of hard to describe, but you kind of know it when you eat it. And the receptors on the taste bud is L-glutamate receptors. And they're naturally present in seaweed, in shiitake mushrooms, fish, fermented cheeses, and soy sauce. And actually, something that is not, you probably heard of this before, MSG, monosodium glutamate. And it's actually was developed in Japan back in the 1900s naturally through breaking down seaweed and stuff. So, with everything, of course, you need to have a balance. If you have too much MSG, it's going to like override your system and stuff and like maybe, cause you to feel a little sleepy. But in small doses, it'll make your food taste better, I guess. Umami, I guess, is this naturally, like I said, in mushrooms. And that's why there's a lot of mushroom in broths and stuff in like Japanese culture. There's different types of sushi. Nigiri, which is rice topped with fish, and that's probably the most basic, like the original sushi. Back in the hundreds of years ago, when there was when there was difficulty like preserving food, right? So they tried to preserve their food as long as possible to eat it, later on and last as long as possible. So they started fermenting the fish with salt and with rice and whatnot. But as people became more and more prosperous, they didn't have to wait as long as they used to for their fermented fish, and eventually it became raw fish. So they developed that taste over hundreds of years. And then there's sushi maki, which is rolled sushi. Probably familiar with that, California roll and whatnot. Prevalent in Japanese cuisine is noodle soups and curries and fried tempura and whatnot. They used to cook noodle soups at night in Japan, right? But the fires that were lit to make these noodle soups like started to spread sometimes and catch whole parts of the city on fire. So they put a ban on making noodle soups at night. And so in traditional Japanese restaurants, you won't probably see as many noodle soups at night. And so that's why there's a lot more sushi at night and whatnot. Korean cuisine, it's characterized by the use of a lot of red pepper paste, kimchi, pickled vegetables, grilled meats like beef short ribs and called kalbi in a sweet soy sauce with pear marinade, banchan, which are little plates of like appetizers and whatnot, and spicy tofu soups. Vietnamese community started in the U.S. right after 1975, which is the year that the South Vietnam fell. And after that, millions of Vietnamese became boat refugees, and came to America. And in the 80s, they started developing markets and restaurants, and in order to like have that flavor that they used to have back home, but now they're here in America. And actually, a really interesting story: sriracha, the red pepper sauce that's very popular nowadays. It was actually developed in California by a Vietnamese Chinese immigrant who came in the 80s, and he said, "Hey man, we don't have any, chili pepper paste that I like back in back in the day. So he started making his own sauce using jalapeno peppers, and now he's like multi-millionaire. Prominent ingredients in Vietnamese culture is probably fish sauce, which is also known as nước mắm, rice noodles, fresh herbs like basil and mint. Fish sauce was created by, it's kind of a complicated process. It's very, very stinky, so you probably want to run away if you see a fish sauce mill somewhere. But you basically take a whole bunch of anchovies and ferment it and like put a giant stone on it and the juices that come out of it, and then they pasteurize it and clean it up and whatnot. But that's a process that's been used for thousands of years, and actually was very prominent in China before Buddhism came along. After Buddhism came along in China, they converted to, you know, vegetarianism mostly, and tried to convert a lot of like their old sauces like fish sauce into tofu-based products, which is how soy sauce came about. And then also pho, which is our, you know, national dish of Vietnam, which is a beef noodle soup, and all these different types of rice noodle dishes topped with grilled pork and seafood based on where it's from. I guess a little bit more about Thai food, you know, there's a lot of curries, which is a influence of like Indian cuisine, and also a lot of fresh herbs as well, and noodles. Chinese cuisine in Orlando actually has been transforming a lot these past few years with the increase of immigration and whatnot. In the past, it's been mostly, like I said, Cantonese cuisine, and that has a lot of like seafood dishes, noodle dishes, and dim sum, which is like a brunch, small plates with dumplings and whatnot. Lately, there's been some new cuisine that has shown up in Orlando, like Shanghainese cuisine at Magic Walk, and they have a lot of like just different flavors. Like one of their signature dishes is like a dish called lion meatball, and it's like a giant meatball with like little like rice noodles on top and a nice savory, like I guess it's like a beef sauce on top. And the newest one is Sichuan Cuisine, which is a lot of people probably like heard of like Sichuan pork or chicken on like Americanized like takeout places, but traditionally Sichuan cuisine has like a lot of Sichuan peppercorns, which is a very unique experience if you haven't had it before. It creates a numb tingling sensation on your tongue called mala, and at first it's like a floral taste, and then it starts to numb your tongue, like a metallic numbing. And that cuisine is actually kind of skyrocketed recently in New York. A new restaurateur named Danny Bowen started a restaurant called Mission Chinese Food, and he started to kind of do a fusion of Sichuanese food and American style food, and he won a award recently, James Beard Award for Rising Chef. So it's coming up quite a bit. Indian cuisine, mostly like based in curries, a lot of vegetarian dishes, and naan, which is a bread baked in a tandoor, which is a clay oven, and rice. So this is a picture of some tandoor, some naan and rice, and I think it's chicken tikka masala. Thanks again, everyone, and hope you enjoy the food. And also, if you would like, we have some books of the Food Lover's Guide to Orlando for sale, and I'll be signing it over here. Thank you so much.